Daddy, we're doing.
I'm doing a podcast, Dizzy. Hello and welcome to the Too Cool for School podcast. I'm your host, Yannick, and on today's episode, we are talking about permanent exclusion. So I've got an amazing guest with me today, and we'll be talking about his lived experience of being permanently excluded, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Hello all, my name is Meka. I'm currently working in asset management as a business analyst.
Okay, great stuff. So Meka, so if we rewind a bit, so we go back into your time at school. So how old are you at the moment?
So I'm 23.
23. So if we go back to your time at secondary school, like how was your experience of secondary school, like overall?
So overall, I had quite a troubled experience in secondary school. So I was in a lot of trouble. I did have a good time, I would say, but I was in a lot of trouble due to kind of disruptive behaviour, my attitude, amongst many other things, because obviously I was going through a lot as a child, and I didn't know how to process the stuff I was going through.
Yeah.
And that kind of led to me expressing myself in the incorrect ways.
Yeah.
So I was in a lot of trouble, a lot of conversations with teachers, trying to get me back on the right track, and just isolation, and exclusions and stuff. So yeah, I was in and out of I was barely in lesson and stuff. So all of that stuff was what kind of, my secondary school experience was about.
So when you mention disruptive behaviour,
Yeah.
and problems with attitude,
Yeah.
is that something that you're acknowledging that you saw in yourself, or are you repeating
Yeah.
what teachers used to say about you?
it's
So
int-
it becomes embedded in your character rather than you actually believing that is the case.
So it's interesting that you asked that question, because at the time I didn't see it like that. I felt like I was in the right majority of the time.
Yeah.
But when I look back at my conduct in certain instances, I could see where my disposition at the time, my attitude at the time, was to not listen and to believe that I was correct. And whatever I felt like I wanted to do, or how I felt like something should have went, is how I decided to approach the situation. And that's what governed my behavior. So I understand that at the time, a lot of teachers did, address and, push across those sort of narratives. But looking back and looking at myself and really taking the time to really understand my state of mind in those situations, I could see why. I can see how that was what was told, because at times I do feel like, I wasn't afforded the grace. I might have been misjudged, and some of the decisions that was made against me were unjust, I would say, but I have to acknowledge my role in a lot of the situations I found myself in,
Yeah.
I did have problems with, euphoria at the time, and, just managing all of that, it was a difficult thing for me, yeah.
No, thank you for being transparent and sharing. You've spoken a bit about injustices, and I think that's something, as previously working in education as a head of year, that a lot of students struggle with, that sense of injustice.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, or what did I do, or how about this person and whatever else.
Yeah.
And with that sense of injustice, it means that sometimes students have issues, dealing with authority, dealing with adults. For you, what made it difficult for you being able to, engage with authority figures?
What? It's interesting because it was a weird one. I just never felt like they knew what I had going on, when it came to like just the stuff I might have had in my head, the worries I might have had at the time, and the problems I might have seen, and just the trouble I might have been in. So because I kind of felt like they didn't know that, and they never ever spoke to that in the way that I could obviously at the time feel comfortable opening up about it or whatever it was, I just felt like you don't understand me.
Yeah.
And from that sort of feeling, I said, because you don't understand me, there's no point in me even listening to you.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's like. You don't understand what I'm going through. You
Yeah.
know, so because of all of that, that's why the authority figures at the time, especially in the schooling system, were just people I just never really gelled with. You know, and I would say some of them did have my best interest at heart, and they were trying to talk to me in certain instances. But some of them just, you know, they write you off as the disruptive kid, the kid with no hope, the kid that's going down that road. You know, that don't get that care or support that I feel like a lot of teenagers need.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you know that's why, you know, practitioners, you know, real practitioners that really want to engage with their young people and their students and care about their kids, always say that behavior is a communication of need. Like if you're seeing a behavior, there is a need. There's something that the child is trying to communicate.
Yeah.
But it's for the practitioner or the teacher to be intentional in trying to find out, you know, what it is that the child is trying to communicate. Because what then happens, you know, as you've experienced, you then just have your back against the wall.
Yeah.
Every day's, you know, it's fight or flight against like the teachers. I'm either gonna fight you, or I'm gonna run away from the authority that you're trying to impose on me. Were there any teachers that stood out, and what made them stand out? Like, what were the teachers that you can look back, even in your difficult experience, to say, you know what, this person at least tried?
There's a few, you know. There's a few.
Yeah.
So there's a few that came at different instances in my life, and I'll take it back to like my very youngest stage. So in my primary school, I had my head teacher in primary school, Mr. Kelly. He was someone that knew how to speak to a child's heart. You know, when I say speak to a child's heart, as you put it, understand their needs, understand what they're going through, and then give them that floor to open up. And when you do that, and you support a child in that way, it's much easier to speak to them and impose the authority that you're referring to. So Mr. Kelly was a great example of someone. He consistently would speak to me anytime I was in a situation in primary school, as early as that was. He would speak to me and he would get to know how I feel about it and really understand how I feel. And I felt like he understood how I feel, but then show me where I might have went wrong, you know, where the teacher at that time might have, what they might have been trying to show me or do, etc., and why I'm getting the punishment that I might have been getting into. So then following on from primary school, there's different examples in my secondary school period. Whilst I was in the pupil referral unit, there was, I would call them teachers, but there was it was like a charity, social charity, I believe it is, a business called Mentivity, run by a man called Sace, and community staple now and great organization. But they would come into the pupil referral unit and do sports. So they'll take out the kids in each year group to go and do sports at the local park. And there was two men that ran the sessions that I was doing, the sports sessions, whilst I was in year 10. A man called Leon and a man called Sace. No, sorry, not Leon. Leon and Tyson, sorry. And Leon and Tyson were perfect example of the pastoral care I feel like kids that are in the situation I was in needed. They would supervise us, but also like act as a mentor in a sense, inserted themselves in advising us, really listening to us and really guiding us in the way that they feel like spoke to who we was as people. They were really good at just kind of understanding the kids that was around, really getting, because they never treated all of us the same. They had different methods of, in just that 2 hours session that we had playing sports, they had different methods of talking to each of the children. But it was like, they knew how to get through, you know, and they would guide you and they would advise you and they would know about a situation you might have had in the Peru and a problem you might have had at detention or whatever, and they would really advise you in an effective way that kind of spoke to you. That's different to like the dismissal that you kind of receive of prior to in situations with other authority members where it's like, you did this is what happened to you. I don't care what you have to say. You know, and I understand there's a space for that, but also, as you said, it's a communication thing. Communication is so important and so powerful, and it's crazy what it can do if you really try and communicate effectively with a student, and how it can change how they conduct themselves, their behavior, their attitude, even their perspective when it comes to circumstances that they're facing in the school. So yeah.
No, communication is key. Communication is key, and I think what I will do before I move on to my next question, I also need to sort of speak on this, but on the behalf of like an educator. So as much as communication is key, you know, I worked as a head of year for 5 years.
Yeah.
And there were certain students like you're just you know, you're just chipping away at them. Like, yo, you need to listen, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to check in, you need to focus, you know, not mess around or whatever else. And, you know, I remember saying to one of my colleagues, Mr. Tomlin, because, you know, he and I worked at the school around the same period, and we invested a lot in you know, our students. But I always say to him, yo, Jay, we can't save all of them, you know.
Yeah.
We can't save all of them. Some are just not listening. And, you know, I recall a particular student, this could have been maybe a year or two before I left the school. And I kept on saying to him, yo, I'm not going to say his name. I'll be like, yo, A, you know, you need to lock in because you're en route to getting permanently excluded.
Yeah.
And you know when someone's like listening, not taking you serious, like, and they're still doing whatever. I remember the day I said to him in the afternoon, this was lunchtime. I said, there's a letter going to your mum's house because of what you did, X, Y, and Z. I said, today's your last day at the school.
Yeah.
I told him that lunchtime. And like he was leaning against the wall. And you know when someone just like stoops down?
Yeah.
They stoop down and it's like head down, like just sitting on like on the floor. And all of his friends like, yo, like what's going on? Da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And then you can see it was just like, it started to like kick in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, like now it's kicking in.
Yeah.
Now we're at the end, it's kicking in. And you know, that was difficult for me seeing that. And it was difficult having to be, obviously I was his head of year, it was difficult having to be the person to pass on that message to him and his parent, because, you know, I don't want to exclude, you know, anyone, but that was that. You spoke a bit about you being at the Pupil referral unit.
Yep.
Can you share like how that happened and when during your time at secondary school did you move over to the Pupil referral unit and explain a bit like how that impacted you and your experience there?
So it's kind of different to the story you just shared about the people you had to break the news to. With me, I was, as I said, quite troubled in school in terms of just getting in a lot of problems. I had a few exclusions by the time I got the news that I was getting permanently excluded, but it came as a shock. You know, I got excluded for 5 days for an issue and a situation I had. And after the 5 days, it was weird because that was the first exclusion where I felt like I need to change something. So I was like, I'm kind of done with this. I just want to change. This is a lot for myself, for my family, just every day. You know, Meka's in trouble, Meka's in problems, another call, another situation, another detention. So
another meeting.
Another meeting. So I was thinking to myself, all right, cool, I'm gonna change this. And I spent that 5 days different to the other exclusions I've had where I'm actually learning independently. I'm actually trying to build myself back up so I can come back into the school and actually be productive rather than...
And for context, what year were you in?
I was in year 9.
This was year 9?
So I was in year 9. It was like the later stages of year 9, so just into summer. And I got a 5-day exclusion. I said, okay, yeah, as I said, I was working on myself. I was, you know, doing the lessons that we had and stuff and revising because we had exams coming up. And I got back the next week and I went to the reception. And when I went to the reception, I tried walking in I was with my mum because obviously after you have your exclusions, you have the meeting with your parents. So I was with my mum. I tried to walk in and they stopped me from walking in. And they said, no, you stay in the reception. We just need to talk to your mum. And at that time, I was like, okay, you know, it's a bit weird. Usually we just go in together and we had a conversation and then I'm reintegrated back into the school. So I sat down, I waited. My mum was gone for about, 40 minutes. And it was weird because my mum came back and she was smiling and laughing. But I feel like she was just laughing as out of disbelief, you know.
Yeah.
She walked through
shock.
she walked through the reception and she was like, they've done it. And I was like, done what? You know, at that time, different to the situation you was referring to, I wasn't told, oh, you might get permanently excluded. It wasn't even in like my mind that I'm going to get permanently excluded, because it kind of felt like I'm bad, but there's worse, you know. In my year group, I'm not the worst. Like, I'm bad, but I'm not the worst behaved, you know. So they done. I was like, they done what? What are you talking about? What possibly could they have done? Why am I not allowed to go back in school? He said, they've kicked you out. They've permanently excluded you. And it's like, that's when it hit. And I had a similar moment to the student you was referring to, where it was like, oh, damn, this is where I've landed myself. This is where I've put myself in. And it was like, I couldn't really process my emotions at the time. I couldn't really feel nothing. So if you came in that moment and asked me, how was you feeling? I couldn't tell you. It was just blank. You know, it was just blank. My mum was just in disbelief, just walking. We walked home actually after, instead of taking the bus. My mum was just like, damn, like, I can't believe this. And it's like, as we got closer to my house, it kind of started settling in. Like, yeah, you've really got yourself into some trouble here. You know, like, permanent exclusion at the time was not a small thing. I didn't have a lot of friends or people in my life that have been permanently excluded. Obviously, you was aware of people, but the people that were getting permanently excluded, I kind of saw myself a bit different than, you know, as you said, there were the individuals that might not never listen, you know. I still felt like I listened a bit, you know, you could get through to me, you know, but sometimes that's just you looking at yourself differently to how you actually projected out to the world. So it's a thing where I was at the time just like, okay, cool. But after, I felt like I could get put back into the school, because you obviously do the governors meetings and stuff. So
did you try to appeal?
Yeah, so we tried to appeal. So when I heard that you could appeal, I said, okay, I'm good. I'm gonna appeal, and they're gonna let me back in. There's no way they're gonna kick me out. You know, that was just me being a young kid that just kind of felt like things will have to go my way. So so I wrote a letter. So I wrote a letter to present in the governor's meeting. The governor's meeting was about a couple of weeks after my permanent exclusion. So I was just at home. I was devising this letter, trying to perfect it. You know, I was on my laptop typing it up. I printed it out, and I was like, this is perfect. I'm gonna argue my case and show them that I'm willing to change. I'm willing to reform myself and not be the individual that, you know, you might have heard about and seen and come across. So we went to the governor's meeting, and the governor's meeting was weird, because it was like you're just in front of these people and they got to basically make a decision, you know, on your future, you know. And to kind of add some more context to why it was such a, obviously permanent exclusion regardless is a serious situation, but I've come from an African household, but both my parents are Nigerian, so you, as many other Africans, know the weight and the sort of and emphasis they put on education,
For sure.
and schooling. And I see so much benefits in education now, and by the time, you know, you're a young kid and stuff, but this is like the worst news they could have heard. You know, the son that they've sacrificed for and put into the schooling system has landed himself in a situation where he's going to potentially be removed. So going into the governor's meeting, I had my letter, I presented my letter. My father and my mother was there, and they both they spoke to the governors, tried to plead my case. I tried to plead my case, and I felt like it went well. In my head, I felt like it went well. Like, I felt like they could see my heart, and they could see that I'm someone that's willing to change. And they kind of stopped, and they spoke amongst each other, and they spoke to me a bit, and they were talking about, you know, certain instances and stuff, and like my behavior points and all of this different stuff. And I thought to myself, okay, I've really been vulnerable here and really showed them that I'm willing to change. This might not have been something they must have come across before. You know, that was my energy. You know, I was a bit naive. So after like 20, 30 minutes, they came to the decision and they said, your appeal's been rejected and you're going to be permanently excluded. So when he said that, that's when I had the moment of, you know, similar to the student. I was like, okay, nah, it's real.
It's real for real. Yeah.
And that's when it hit my parents properly. Because as I said, my mum was laughing. And my mum, you know, she's got a strong spirit. Same with my dad. They kind of feel like, nah, it's going to work out, you know.
Yeah.
So their energy was like, we're going to go to this appeal. There's no way you're going to mess up after this, you know. And they were just like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that was that. And that's what led me into the pupil referral unit. And just to share a bit about my pupil referral unit and pre-experience. So prior to going in there, my mum heard the worst. You know, my mum's heard the worst stories from like people she might have met at work, and just through her sort of, my dad limited understanding of what it was.
Yeah.
My mum heard the worst.
He's going in there, it's gonna be bad gang.
gang.
Real.
And you know, like at the time, I still, you know, you have that sort of energy, that young energy where you feel like, you know, you're the guy. So I didn't let the sort of narrative and sort of, I would call it hysterics around it, really get to me. I wasn't fearful entering it. It was more looking at my situation like, damn, like I'm year 9 going into year 10, and this is what was kind of said to me, projected to me, as well as me kind of realizing slowly but surely, is that I'm going into year 10 and I've been placed in a pupil referral unit. How am I going to get out of it? Because, as you know, year 10 and year 11 is the pivotal years that set you up for your GCSEs. And what mainstream school is going to take on a kid that has been permanently excluded at the end of year 9 and spending year 10 in a unit. So going to that was like my main fear. But as I said, I was quite indifferent to it, and I kind of felt, I was masking it with just the sort of feeling of just feeling like a young guy and stuff. But there was a sense of like hopelessness, internally that was kind of building up as we got further into my time there. I would say there was some bright moments and positives during my time there, because that's when I started working on myself. As I said, my 5-day exclusion that led to my permanent exclusion is when I started this journey. And after the permanent exclusion, I kind of fell off a bit, and then I tried to get back onto it, and it was just a to and fro and an up and down sort of roller coaster of me believing that, cool, I can better myself, I can get back into mainstream school, and then realizing I probably ain't got no hope, you know. So my time at the Peru was productive in a sense that it gave me the time to really be with myself, rather than being in a situation, being around my friends, just being up to no good. And now I had to really face me, like really face me, because you spend so much time alone there because of the way it's kind of set up. And as I had no friends going into it, obviously I made friends there, and there's a few people that I knew through my area and stuff, and that were there, but like, you don't really consider them your real friends, because your real friends are like your secondary school friends at the time. Yeah, for sure. So obviously as I kind of grew into that, I came close with them, and I could consider them my friends near the end. But that sense of hopelessness was strong, like I was really feeling hopeless in there. I was really feeling the shame and the weight and the failure of just like, damn, like my parents really tried for me, and this is what I've repaid them with,
And you spent your last 2 years at the Peru.
So I spent end of year 9. So I got permanently excluded like June, July-ish, and then I spent the majority of year 10. So it was basically end of year 9 all the way into year 10, but it was different. So at the end of year 9, I spent it at the Peru for year 7s to year 9s, and then obviously you go to the one that's for year 10s and year 11s. Yeah,
which was considered
Key
Stage 3 and Key Stage 4.
Yeah. So then, key stages, yeah.
What did you do for year 11? Was you back in a mainstream school?
And that's what I can talk a bit about the journey and stuff, and about the process of it all. because it was a lot because I was in the Peru, and when I was in there, I felt like okay, potentially, but I kept on getting rejected
From mainstream schools?
Yeah, so as I got further into my time there, I think we got into like the spring term, so like just after the Easter break, and they were saying potentially you could get back into a mainstream school, you know, and I was thinking, okay, cool, like hopefully, and I just kept on getting rejected. Opportunities potentially, you know, they offer you up to a school and ask if they want to take you on, and rejection. So
do you know why the schools rejected you, or do you have an idea of why they rejected you?
I think I don't know the details because I don't really know how the system worked. But from what I could piece together at the time, it was like risk factors in terms of how successful do they feel like the integration of the student would be back into their mainstream school. And they assessed me in a sense based on my records, based on what the Peru was saying about me, because obviously, you know, they keep documents on how you behave and stuff. And so it was sort of more so that, and a lot of the schools within my borough was just rejecting me at the time. So I felt like that was the main reason. But yeah, like by the time we was getting closer and closer to the end of the year, I said, yeah, my time's coming up. And that's when it was getting, I would say, a lot dark for me in terms of like my mental space and just thinking about like my future.
Yeah.
And it's weird because the narrative behind kids that kind of go to Prus is one sort of narrative. And I remember being told about the Pru to prison pipeline, about the large percentage of prisoners that, you know, have been to a Pru. So it's like when you're in there and you're in there at such a pivotal stage of your life, you know, all you know is your teenage years. And if you're talking to anyone of that's elder, they don't see a route out. They don't see a way out. They're not giving you any space and any sort of option of there's something positive that can come out of this. It's all negative. It's as the elders of my family would say, there's only one route. You're going to jail. You know what I mean? That's what they would say. So do you know what this step is before? You know, and you start internalizing that, you know, because after a while, just keep on hearing the same narrative. Not one person really, like, of elders status that I came across sort of gave me a route out or showed me that it's okay. You can make your way out of this. You can sort of navigate out of this. It just never was said to man blatantly. So I started feeling near the end like this is what I got to do. You know, I've already been a bad boy up until this point, and I feel like that's the crossroads that a lot of the kids in Prus get to, and they get to that point where they just say, I'm just gonna do it, and they go to a point that there's no return. And it's like when I was starting to feel like that, when I was starting to realize, okay, this is the life that I'm gonna have to live, you know, I've already obviously you know, I'm really messing about in that sort of stuff and just being a troubled kid. So I was getting to that stage, and at the end of year 10, I remember a teacher came to me and said, there's a school that want you.
Well,
and it was like, okay, damn, is this real? Is this happening? You know, I've been rejected before, but is this actually going to happen? Is this going to work out? And it was like, at that time, it was like that was a crossroad, you know? And I felt like, you know, with all the mental sort of emotional roller coaster I was going through, and this was the moment of like, okay, this is the route out, you know? So I got that opportunity, and luckily it followed through, and the school said they're going to take me on. And then it was quick. It wasn't like, so usually what would happen is that students would be told, so like students in the younger years and other students that got reintegrated back into mainstream school, they would they would actually just, it would be a couple weeks and then they go into the school. They said, yeah, tomorrow go into the school for a meeting, and then you're in next week.
Wow.
because of the stage of year 10 I was at, because we're at the end. It's like they need me in school as soon as possible.
As soon as possible, yeah.
So I went to the meeting it was a Friday. I went, met a man called Mr. McCocken. Never forget that guy. Irishman, similar to my my primary school head teacher. He just looked at me and he said, "You've been in there for a while, and we're taking a chance on you. Like, don't mess this up." And it's like when he said that to me, he looked to me. Obviously, I felt like, okay, he believes in me. He feels like I can do something with myself.
Yeah.
You know, and I was different to sort of what I was, previously used to from teachers. And this is the first time him meeting me, and him just saying that, and just in a concise way, just gave me them batteries to be like, okay, you know what?
They're giving you a chance.
Let me take this chance. So next week I started back into the school, and that was sort of the end of my pre-journey. So yeah.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful. And I wanna reflect a bit. When you were speaking about that period where you was doing the appeal and you're having to wait. And I know how excruciating that can be, because I've been on many disciplinary panels as staff member, or in my current role working for the local authority, and I know how difficult that can be. For parents, for students, for families, because it's essentially make or break, and it's you essentially fighting or defending yourself against the school who are trying to get rid of you, and it's not easy. So the fact that you had the intention to say, you know what, I'm going to prep, I'm going to type this up, the school's not going to let me go and whatever else. Did you feel in those moments that you were let down by the school?
Do you know what? Looking back at it, and I feel like, because I'm looking at it as extremes. So there was teachers on the panel, teachers that obviously was in the school that was aware of me, that, was used to me and stuff, and that would communicate and, would teach me, etc. So when I look back at it, I could say, there was a level of a failure, because seeing a kid come from one extreme where he's one of the worst behaved in the year group to coming and really getting vulnerable, showing that he's willing to reintegrate and actually work towards being a better student, looking at and just crushing it. Because I would say in the meeting there wasn't a level of just like, they didn't seem to care. It wasn't like a remorseful, okay, you know what, we still have to do this, and I really love your... They didn't really acknowledge my letter. It just was, this is the decision.
They'd made up their mind.
And that's sort of what I feel like hardens a lot of kids, because that kind of hardened me. I felt like in that moment, okay, like, you're never gonna understand it. You're never gonna care. Even when I try, it's not gonna work. And that's what sort of, as I feel, sometimes gets students and teenagers down that downward spiral, because they'll have moments of showing themselves and trying to better themselves, and because of the reputation they build, which is fair enough. It is tough. I'm not sitting there and saying that the teachers have to feel for every student that comes and shows remorse and tries to change and stuff, but there was a failure in that part to really acknowledge the sort of change I was willing to undergo. And I feel like if they acknowledged that, it would have been a much easier transition for me to transition out of that. So
no, that's insightful.
Yeah.
And if we think about like this idea of perception, do you think being permanently excluded for you changed the way like your family looked at you?
Do you know what? When I say so I would say yes. I'll say yes. Like, African household, Nigerian household, education is everything. For you to be permanently removed from that and be put in a situation where you're not in the same curriculum that the rest of the children are of your age group, they looked at it as like, there's no hope for this kid. We tried, amongst all their sacrifices, amongst everything they've done, and their sort of energy particularly was like, there's nothing we can do. What can we say to you? You've done the worst of the worst to them. And that was hard, because my family will always be there for me. I'm not going to sit and act like, you know, they was never be there for me. But when you know that's how you're being viewed, how do you at that age really bring yourself up to kind of communicate with them and really get and really try and, you know, in the moments where I needed them, how would I go about navigating, trying to, you know, get the support from them that I needed? And I know that in the moments, if I did, you know, go up to my mum or my dad and say, oh, I need some, I'm really feeling down at the moment, they would be there, but I just couldn't do it because I knew I was being viewed like that. And I knew that at the time they would blame no one but me, you know, because the teachers, what the teachers say is what
that
they
feeling
believe.
of like not being worthy, that feeling of embarrassment. Like, how can I even approach them? You know, I got myself into this type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's difficult. It's difficult, and during that period, especially when you were in the Peru, like how was it navigating like your friendship groups from like your mainstream school, and how was it watching your friends sort of move down different career paths because they're focusing on GCSE. You're just trying to find a school that's gonna accept you. They may be getting ready for A levels and whatever else. So the trajectory is now different. So how was it navigating those friendship groups?
So I feel like, you know, this is nothing against any of them, but seeing that and witnessing them sort of making steps towards their future whilst you're in a situation where there is no steps being made towards your future really limits how you view your trajectory and the routes you can take in life. Because I'm seeing them learning about this in English or learning about this in maths, and I ain't learning about none of that. I don't even know what that is, you know. And that's why I consider my friends from my secondary school my brothers, because they still try to make me feel included, but they could only include me in stuff that's outside of school. The stuff within school, when they're in the group chat, they're talking about this exam or this thing. I had no clue what they were referring to, and that's sort of what really gets you down the spiral of thinking, you're behind. Like, you're behind in life. These lot are thinking about the sixth forms they potentially might be going to, and some were doing their GCSEs early because they were that sort of level of they had that sort of level of academic ability, and it's just they're picking their choices in terms of what GCSEs they're gonna do, and I haven't even thought about that. I'm just trying to get back into school, you know, and it was tough. Like, it was tough seeing it. I remember like there was, because when I got permanently excluded in year 9, that Peru, so the year 7 to year 9 one was near my secondary school. So I would walk past my secondary school on the way home, and it's kind of, because it was on a bridge, I could look over into the playground,
to see
and I'm just looking to see everyone. I'm just like, bruv, what the hell have I done? You know, like, I'm not even in the institution, only institution, school and secondary school institution that I know, that I'm familiar with. I'm in a new one, and it's completely different. We're not even learning the same. You know, I was a curious kid, so I did like learning in a sense. It's just that, you know, all the other stuff kind of got in the way of that. But
of course,
just that lack of that, and just being excluded from that sort of really limited how I saw the sort of trajectory of my life.
100%. And if we fast forward, because, you know, 10 plus years later, or less than 10 years later, like, you're in a much, you know, better space. If we think about like your mentality and your mindset, what do you think happened, or what did you do in particular that's allowed you to overcome what, you know, let's call it an obstacle, that allowed you to overcome the obstacle?
So it was interesting because as I was transitioning and I was overcoming the obstacle, I didn't realize at the time what was helping me. But I had figures in my life that were significant in this sort of process. My big sister, Adobe, I want to just shout her out, because during the whole time, more than she's only a year older than me, so she's obviously never experienced this, never really seen it. I don't think no one in her year group she knew personally got permanently excluded, so I'm the first person. And she would do this thing, which I just kind of call like positive reinforcement, you know? She helped me see the light in the situation that I was in, and helped me or tried to encourage me to see myself outside of the situation I was in, because, you know, I was letting it consume me. You know, I was letting it consume the way I think about myself, the way I think about life, the way I look at life, and the way I look at the prospects of my life. And sort of that positive reinforcement, as I said, I started implementing that. You know, I started looking at it like, okay, cool. Let me see the light in the situation. Let me try and work on myself. Let me try and take the positive from this. Let me deviate from my previous attitudes, my previous dispositions, and look at things differently. When I'm speaking to a member of authority in the school, let me hear them out. Let me understand where they're coming from. You know, all stuff that, you know, I just wasn't doing beforehand. And sort of just that positive reinforcement, positive perspective, I would say, and sort of changing the attitudes. I used to meditate quite a bit, and that would cool the system, you know, that would cool the way I feel, and sort of allow me to sort of be calm, you know. Because when I look back at like my old previous self, there was a lot of tension within me. Like I was ready to go. I was ready to say something I don't like.
Survival mode.
There you go.
Survival mode.
There you
Like
go.
I was saying before, like you was always in a fight or flight.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was just a lot of tension within me, and that was the main transition. You know, overcoming that, unlearning that sort of foundation you had. You know, growing up in a London, in a council estate. You know what sort of energy you sort of gravitate, or like, you know, that consumes you. You know, and sort of that fight or flight, just kind of getting over that hump, transitioning to a more calmer state of mind, and taking the light in situations, as I put it, and being a more positive orientated person and having a positive perspective is what mainly was the work I was doing. So as I said, the meditating, the calmness, the conversations with my sister. You know, she was just checking on me when I felt like no one was, you know, but really checking on me, like really you know, they'll say, "Yo, bro, what you saying?" You know, that's what my friends would say. And you're just saying, "Yeah, I'm good, yeah, I'm out here." You know, you do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But my sister would sit me down, look into my eyes, and say to me, "Yo, what's going on? How you feeling? Or why are you feeling hopeless? Like, what's wrong with you? You're good." Like, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like, this ain't your story, you know. And that sort of stuff, like, you know, looking back is what really powered me. You know, like it really, like, it became integrated into my soul and my system. Of like, okay, let's keep working. Even in the moments, as I said, I was getting rejected from mainstream schools, I was still trying to be better. And it wasn't a linear journey, by the way. Like, I just didn't go from the extreme of being a bad kid and having all this trouble and just being around all of that and just going straight. I would go up, come down.
Yeah.
Go up, come down, and that's what is the beauty of it all.
I think no one's life is ever linear.
100%.
You know, no one's life is ever linear. No one's life has that upward trajectory. You know, we have like our up and down, you know, experiences. We have our obstacles that we go through. And I think you're lucky in a sense where, you know, you had someone who was checking in on you and being intentional with the check-ins and not just, what's good? I'm good. But it's really, you know, checking in, locking in with you and making sure that your mind is fixed on, you know, something more positive. And 100%. You know, what your sister did is something that, you know, for me as a practitioner and an educator, is something that I encourage with all educators and practitioners. Like, you really need to lock in and understand, you know, what these young people are going through. Like, see them behind, you know, like what's beyond what you can see in their physical experience, beyond the uniform and the books that they're carrying and the work that they're doing and whatever else. Not just for the ones that are showing like the negative traits or displaying the negative behaviors. All of them. Don't just think because a kid's doing all of their homework and they don't give you no trouble and they're quiet that they're cool. Because when you check in with them properly and you're like, oh, what's
Find out
going
a
on?
lot, yeah.
Like, right, you're going through all of this.
Yeah.
Because people ain't really checking in with, intentionality. And, that's important.
Yeah.
And it's important that you had that. And it's important that you was able to navigate that, space to have that experience. And, I would... Do you know this topic of permanent exclusion is very difficult for me because I've excluded students. I've permanently excluded students before. I've seen students go through permanent exclusions where I personally felt that it wasn't
That's all right,
justified, but hands were tied, whether that's, school, local authority or whatever else. And, the demographic of the students that experience that means that it's much more, impacting of me because of, the similar cultures and the communities that we come from. And I guess, it's difficult because even for me, 20 plus years ago, being in school, I was excluded. The amount of times I was excluded in school was ridiculous. Not permanently, but all of the things that I did in school, I wouldn't last in a mainstream school now. 2 months. 2 months I would have been gone.
Crazy, yeah.
Or even, 2 weeks. And I don't know what it was about, my school that allowed them to hang on to me and and really push. But just if I had to go through the experience that you went through and that so many others went through, and the school permanently excluded me, I would have been like, yo, all I've ever known is
school,
is you and the school and these teachers. How you guys, letting go of me, type thing. So I can see how, people feel that sense of disloyalty from them. And luckily you've been able to go through with life, make changes, do well and look back and say, oh, do you know what? There were certain times my emotional regulation weren't good. But big up this teacher, they really looked out, big up this person and that person. There's people that don't recover from that. They hold on to those grudges. They hold on to the grudges like properly. Like there's, not that I've excluded many, but the one or two that I've excluded, if I know like their older brothers or their friendship groups or whatever, if I still keep, I'm always out, yo, how's my man? Is he good? Like, what's he doing? Let him know, sir said. That one boy, in fact, I remember now, that one boy that I did permanently exclude, I wrote him a letter. After, I didn't have to. I wrote him a letter because I'm telling you, it was difficult. It was difficult for me. I wrote him a letter, I gave it to his older brother. Because I was his older brother's head of year as well. And I said, give this to your brother. Let him hold on to that. And it was just to say, like, you know what, keep pushing. Like, there's potential. You need to lock in. You need to, whether he read that letter the first time, dashed it, whether he burnt it without even reading, I wouldn't know. But I wrote it because I needed to show him that actually there's people here that are still, championing you. But I know that is difficult. I want to ask now, if you could look back at your younger self in terms of like where you are now, looking back at younger Meka, like what's one advice you would just give to yourself?
I think it'll be like what governs me now, that positive perspective, taking the light in the situations, really actually trying to emotionally regulate yourself and understand that, everything that you think ain't always right. Be willing to learn, be willing to listen properly, and actually like channel your energy correctly. Channel your energy correctly and channel it to more positive things, Everything's not an attack against you. Everything's not an attack. Everything is not someone trying to cause an issue with you and have a problem with you. And that would be my main sort of advice, you know. Take the positive, regulate your emotions, and sort of release the tension, you know. Calm yourself, you know. Like, I was an angry kid.
Yeah.
You know, to put it lightly, even I was an angry kid.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like I wasn't just like someone that was just disruptive. That there was rage in me that could obviously like show itself in different forms. It wasn't always just like me trying to throw a table. I didn't really do nothing like that. It was just that when I get into that sort of mode, you couldn't really tell me anything. I wouldn't want to ever listen to you. You know, I'm gonna listen to myself. You know, I'm breaking out of that cycle, breaking out of that sort of energy of just pure like. Just like I don't want to call it like delinquency, but like that level of just no one knows. Yeah, I'm trying to say because people know. You know, looking back at it, I had certain instances, conversations, you know, with different people at different stages, where like looking back, you could see what they were trying to get to, but I didn't offer them the space. You know, with the limited sort of foresight I had on life itself and. You know, thinking that you know it all and stuff, it was difficult to sort of manage. But I think that main advice would be positivity. I know I'm saying it sounds just like a buzzword, but genuinely just looking at the light, looking at the good things, you know, to put it simply. So if there's any child listening to this, it's like, look at the good things. And if you think there's no good things, there's definitely good things. Yeah. There's definitely, I'm telling you, as someone that's been through it all, genuinely been through it all, in terms of that sort of experience, there is good things that you can draw on and build from. That's the foundation you build up from, rather than the foundation of negativity that kind of push you down, further down that route. So,
no, 100%. And you know, you mentioned earlier, and you were speaking about you know the pre to prison pipeline or school to prison pipeline. Yeah. What stopped you during that season when you could have easily been? Let me jump on what my man's doing. Yeah. Let me not even come to Prue. Yeah. Because I know these man on the strip are going upside, like things, you know, are moving. What stopped you in that season from saying, you know, let me just touch road because everyone's given up on me and just do my own thing?
It's so crazy you ask that because I had too many of those situations. And I look back with just pure gratitude at the fact that I chose the route of not going down that route.
For sure.
Not linking my man, not doing that thing, not bunking school and shooting to do whatever it was. And it was, at the time, as I say, that's why I put so much heavy weight and importance on my sister. Because if I never had someone I would go home to and really check in with and really knew me, like, you know what I'm trying to say, knew me, I knew that I wanted to do more positive things looking forward, I would probably have made a decision to go, you know? And it's like having her there, having her drilling the sort of positivity and sort of me looking at myself after like the reflection time I was taking and just really looking at sort of my prospects of life and thinking, okay, cool, like I look at everyone that I knew that went to Peru, you know, in the older years, because the way it was, I knew quite a few people in different year groups, you know, and like some people gone to prison. Unfortunately, some people even passed away. Yeah. And I was looking at myself like, okay, is that the life I want to live? You know, is that the sort of, is that going to be my story? You know, is that what my parents to sort of, when they think about me, is I've gone to prison or, you know, I've unfortunately passed away. So that, and I don't know why I had the sort of foresight to have that sort of conversation with myself, because a lot of the kids don't, you know, you don't really see outside of, you don't really look at the future properly the way you should at that age. So, you know, maybe it was this conversation with my sister that kind of was the catalyst for this sort of reflection time and sort of time that I took to look at myself and look at my future, where that made me deviate from that, you know? And that's sort of what allowed it not to be my destiny. Yeah. I looked at myself, I looked at what I felt like I could do something in the world, you know, in terms of like I could be better, you know what I'm trying to say. So that was the main thing. Just looking at myself and thinking, all right, cool. Yeah. There's light, there's positivity that I need to take from this, and yeah, let me not ruin myself even further because I already ruined quite a lot. You know, you could imagine how the sort of dynamic is with your parents and stuff and your elders, your aunties and uncles when they know you're not even in school. They know you're not going to school. I probably had like one or two aunties that genuinely would still like look at me and try to, you know, govern me the same way.
Yeah.
The others just, they couldn't even believe it. It's just pure disbelief. They're just like, how can you have done, you've done this to yourself, you know?
It's crazy. Look at all your age mates.
Look at
Look
all
at your cousins
is
and
that
everyone
comparison.
else.
Everyone, no one's been
just-
kicked out. There was not one person in anyone around my family that ever had a situation even, you know what I mean? So that's why it was even, it had even more weight, you know what I'm trying to say, because of the fact that it was such a foreign concept to anyone in my family, in my proximity at the time. Obviously outside, you know a few people that got kicked out of school, but that's just as a young person.
Yeah.
My mum and dad and my aunties and uncles never knew no one in that's got themselves in that sort of situation. So, yeah, that was the main thing. The main thing was just sort of, I had moments, you know, I had those moments, I had those conversations, you know, I'm still around certain people and at the time, it was just like, yeah, it was a blessing that I could see greater than myself at the time. And I feel like that's a trouble that a lot of kids have. They can't see greater than their situation. They let their situation consume me. And in a lot of ways, I was doing that at the time.
Yeah.
But I reached a point where I was unlearning that. And I was unbecoming that and becoming a new version of me.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what just sort of spurred me forward.
That's powerful, man. And I think, you know, it's important in life, you know, whatever we do, that we find opportunities where we can add value to people. And we do that by leaving little seeds in them.
Yeah.
By leaving those little seeds in them.
Yeah.
And the thing is with those seeds that we'll never know when they're going to grow when they're going to cultivate.
Yeah.
But something will happen.
Yeah.
That's why you're able to, years later, think about what the primary school head teacher said.
Yeah.
That's why you're able, years later, to think about the stuff that your sister was saying, because it adds value. And what the value does is when you're going through stuff in life that's going to pull you a certain way,
It gives you something to
those
lean on.
values is like saying, no, come back.
Yeah.
You mean something. You're locked in.
Yeah.
They're focused on you. That one teacher that came after the whole academic year of all the schools saying no, and they're like, yo, I'm taking a chance on you. And I don't even
Know you.
I don't even know you. Like those sort of things is like, you know, those little seeds, and they make a difference. And I know I can look back at so many teachers who just, and you've got this.
Yeah.
But then I can also look at teachers and people and friends and family members who have said otherwise. But it's the positives, like you said. It's the positives. That's what I'm going to lean on. I'm going to lean on the person that's like, nah, Jan, you can do this. I'm going to lean on the person that said, I appreciate you for doing whatever else. I'm going to lean on, you know what I'm trying to say? And that's why for me, you know, when you got in touch and you was like, yo, I want to, you know, have this conversation and whatever else, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it because of my own lived experience. Let's do it because I know there's so many other young people that are going through the same experience. Let's do it for the teachers that are listening in so they can be like, oh, you know what, I need to move different with my students. Let's do it for the parents that are listening in and thinking, you know what, I need to lock in with my son when they're going through whatever else, and, you know, letting them know that I'm with them, you know, on their journeys, you know. So I think that's, you know, that's particularly important, definitely.
I love the point because that's how I see it. That's how I see it. The seeds. I term it residue.
Yeah.
All of the different experiences, there was my sister, there was my primary school teacher, there was the TAs in my primary school, there was a few teachers in my secondary school I got kicked out of. In this mainstream school I moved to after, there was many teachers that planted those positive seeds that have blossomed into sort of me becoming the best version of myself after all of the troubles I sort of faced, you know. And it's like, as a teenager, you don't see it. You don't see it, and it's only when you get older that residue builds and that becomes your foundation of what you lean on. You know what I'm trying to say. So as I transition from secondary school, the end of secondary school, into sixth form, from sixth form into, because I'd done a degree apprenticeship, so I went straight into working. So as I transitioned through all them steps, is those positive seeds that sort of governed me, you know, and allowed me to effectively push forward through any sort of trial or tribulation I sort of faced, you know. So it's important, and that's, as I said, why I wanted to have the conversation, because, and I feel like, you know, people that have been aware of my situation, teachers, anyone of care of children, whether it's a parent or whatever, guardian, I feel like it gives them hope for them kids, you know, that them kids that you might think there's no hope for, because that's how I was viewed, you know. And that's why I feel like it's so important, because sometimes these kids don't know
100%.
the positive that can come out of it.
Yeah.
You know, they don't see it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? It's not apparent in their face. They might not know the people that might have been faced the same experience that they had in school. You know, so just being able to like showcase that is something, because I've kind of been quiet about my sort of situation, my experience, in terms of letting it be known to people on a wider scale. But it was only until I was about 3 years or 4 years into my career, I was nearing graduation, and my company at the time, they had a session where they wanted to, it was like a social session, and they wanted to speak to all the apprentices and trainees, they call it, but all the trainees, and talk about their background and stuff. And I didn't really know what to talk about in terms of background. I was going to talk about my African Nigerian upbringing, you know, as an Igbo man. But then I spoke to my sister again. Yeah. My sister said, you know what, you should tell them about your 100%. Experience, you know. And I was like, yeah, should I like, are they gonna care? Like, it's kind of like, you know what I mean? We're in a corporate setting, you know, that, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it was a bit of, there was a little bit of doubt. Yeah. But then I said, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And that conversation, that's what I sat on the panels, hundreds of people in my company, and I just told them. Yeah. I spoke about the journey, spoke about the work I put in, and the sort of how it wasn't a linear path, you know, how I struggled, you know, how I pushed through the struggle and stuff. And it was like, they loved it, you know, like I was getting messages, my teams was blowing up, people just messaging me, I love that, your journey's so powerful. Oh my goodness, you would have never known. This is lovely to hear. And then I realized the power in stories and articulating the journey you've been on. You don't know what that can do for people, you know? So then that happened, and then I graduated, because obviously I was doing the degree whilst working, and then I made a LinkedIn post and I spoke about it, and that even probably garnered more even attention than it was in my company. That kind of blew up for me on that sort of space, and that's when I really realised, okay, cool, this journey that I went on is something that people can look at and is a sign for hope. Yeah. And that's the main reason why I wanted to platform this sort of experience, because there's too many kids, man. There's too many kids that are facing this, and like, I see myself as an exception, because if I look at my year group, if I look at the students I was with in Impru, out of the 20, 30 odd people, there's only 2 I could really think of that are doing something of a positive level, you know? Yeah. I know how it like, works. I got a couple of them passed away, unfortunately, God rest their souls. Yeah. And a few of them, and you hear through the grapevine, in and out of jail, in this gang and that gang.
It's the story, innit? It don't matter what borough, it don't matter what. Yeah. And, you know, that's why I said to you when we was first chopping it up, I said, damn, like, I'm near over 10 years older than you. Yeah. And the same stuff is still going on. Yeah. The same stuff still going on outside in the community and in schools. Yeah. You know. And
so I wanted to see if a story like mine can help break, even if it's one cycle.
And it will.
You know?
It will.
And that's why I've started to see more power in it. You know, initially it just was like, it didn't feel like anything special, you know?
We'll never know the seeds. We'll never know the seeds. When you just plant it,
Yeah.
Like right as we're doing now, we're planting, and that's it.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
never know.
That's the,
But somewhere, somehow, someone's gonna say, "Oh, do you know what? I listened to a podcast and this guy Meka." You'll never know,
Yeah.
but you've done your part, and
Yeah.
that's
that's
the
sort of the
best
thing,
thing.
and that's sort of the energy that I've come
Yeah.
to like take with my story, because before it just was the norm, like, you know,
Yeah.
that was the kid that got kicked out of school. Now he done his GCSEs. Because what made my story even more like crazy to people was the fact that, so as which I haven't really touched on, but so when I got back into mainstream school, I done really well in my GCSEs, like considerably well. I
That's
got A
great.
star to A
That's
in all my
amazing.
GCSEs. So
That's
someone
amazing.
that everyone knows has spent a year basically in a pupil
through-
referral unit.
yeah,
Prior to that was outside of class so much, significantly behind. Being able to get those grades
Yeah.
was like
I
a
know mum and
miracle.
dad was billing. Oh, Meka, my son, you don't know. Yeah, A
Do you know
star.
what? It's funny because when I first got the news, because I went into my GCSEs with the energy of like, I just want to pass. You know, I'm so behind. Even when I'm doing like my revision, I'm realizing I've missed out on so much stuff that my peers are just, oh yeah, we done that in year 9. Oh, we done that in year 8. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even know that. So I went into that with the energy of just passing, and then I remember I was even too like scared to sort of open it up in front of people. So I left my school. I opened up the envelope. So I took the envelope and I left my school premises. I went around the back on one alleyway and opened it, and it was like, damn, that was like the first signal and sign of, okay, so this work you've been doing, this is the proof of concept. This is,
Oh, 100%.
you know what I'm trying to say? This is the
100%.
proof, you know, and it blew me away. I called my dad. My dad didn't believe me. Mum didn't believe me too. My mum was so shocked. She literally was at home, you know, like she didn't come, you know, some parents come with their students. My mum heard the news. She got ready and came straight down to the
she
school.
said, "No, let me come.
Let
see
me
this
come
with my
down to the
own
school.
eyes,
Let me
bro."
see with my own eyes.
Yeah,
But dad was at work. He was like, nah, there's no way. You're playing with me. I said, no,
yeah.
dad, I've got these grades, and
No,
it's sort of,
the proof of concept is real, and I think when you go through that experience, because you're reminding me of how I felt when I opened my GCSE results, and I
Yeah.
went round the corner, I opened it, and my eyes just watered. I got like A stars to A stars to C's, A stars to C's. Like I
Yeah.
passed everything, like, you know, above average grade,
Yeah.
whatever. And I remember my eyes just watering, and I was just like, it was that feeling of, bro, 5 years in this place, bro. These
Yeah.
people wanted to finish me.
yeah,
Like, and I've like for real
yeah,
did this, because you know the pressure on like GCSEs and
The press,
whatever else,
crazy.
like
yeah,
it's crazy, and it was like in that moment, it's funny because, you know, earlier we was talking about the positives
yeah,
and how that spurs us on,
yeah.
but in that moment, all I could hear was
The negatives.
the negatives.
Yeah,
Oh, you weren't gonna make it.
yeah,
You weren't gonna do this, or you're gonna end up here. You're gonna end up there. And I was like, bro, look, if I could take this and slap it in you man's face, I would.
yeah,
You know what I'm trying to say?
yeah,
And that's what it was. That overwhelming feeling of
yeah,
like I've silenced the negatives.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it, but look, my grades have
Yeah.
silenced you now. You know what I'm trying to say?
And it's powerful you say that, because that's similar, like very similar to how I felt, because you would obviously know the amount of actually getting in a situation where you're actually kicked out of school, the amount of, you're not going to amount to nothing, you
Yeah.
go to prison, all that stuff. And it's like, it's powerful because those sort of grades and that sort of experience is what silenced that. It killed it completely in my head. Every sort of narrative that was projected onto me that was negative, it was like that moment was like, okay, cool. That's dead. There's positivity out there for you. There is more that, as I said, it's greater than me. You know what I'm trying to say?
Powerful.
And it's like, it's so good for a young person to experience that. And I feel like that's what I needed to push even further. Because as I said, I was slipping up. You know, I wasn't, if I tell you now that when I got into my new mainstream school, I got excluded just as many times as I did in my previous secondary school,
Wow.
that I got kicked out of, you can understand that it still wasn't a linear journey. Like, I still was struggling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? I still was having my problems and my issues. But it was like that moment was like, okay, cool.
You did it.
You did it, you know, like, you know.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful,
So,
man.
yeah. And then it just was building from there.
Yeah.
You know, from there, it was just building from there, going into sixth form, instead of like just going into sixth form, picking A-levels that were difficult.
Yeah.
You know, like picking maths, picking econ and history. You know, at the time, you know, people were saying just do a B Tech, do a C Tech. You know, like A-levels might be a bit too much for you. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But that sort of reinforcement that I had through that sort of proof of concept of just like, getting these results and beating all of the odds. Because I really see it now, you know, like now that I'm a much more grown individual, like I really beat so many odds with that, you know, and I overcome a lot with that sort of result. And it's so powerful how that sort of spurred me on to do so much more with myself, you know.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful, man. And, you know, we've come to the end of the episode now, but it's been, you know, amazing, you know, having this discussion with you. I know there's going to be, you know, so many people, you know, that are sort of blessed and inspired by this. So thank you again, Meka, for coming on. So that has been the Too Cool for School podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platforms.